Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial. Is Teacher Raya here. So I'm going to solve question 10 from the NECTA Form 4 Mathematics paper 2020. So we start with part A. We're told Rachel is 3 years older than her brother John. 3 years to come, the product of their ages will be 130 years. Formulate a quadratic equation representing this information. Hence, by using the quadratic formula, find their present ages. How old are they now? Right, so let's start with that one, and then when we're done, we'll do part B. Let's start with Rachel and John. We're going to put Rachel there and John somewhere here. Okay, so Rachel is 3 years older than her brother John. So John is a younger one. We can say John is X years old. Let's say this is how old John is. So if John is X, then Rachel is going to be X plus 3. That's how old she is. Now, 3 years to come, the product of their ages will be 130 years. Right, so 3 years later, okay, what will be Rachel be? What will be her age? It will be X plus 3 plus 3, which means 3 years later, Rachel is going to be X plus 6 years old. John is going to be 3 years older, so that's X plus 3. Now, the product of their ages 3 years later is 130 years. Product means if you multiply their ages. So, what that means, if we take X plus 6, and if we multiply that with X plus 3, we should get 130. So first we need to formulate the quadratic equation. So basically this is it, but let's simplify it. If you expand this, you will get x squared. So x squared, x times 3. So that's plus 3x. 6 times x, that's going to be plus 6x. 6 times 3, that's going to be plus 18. Equals to 130. Right then, so if you simplify this, we collect like terms, we will get x squared plus 9x. We want one side to be 0 because we know we need to solve it at some point later on. So we're going to take away 130 on both sides so we can have a 0 on this side. So plus 18, take away 130, will give us minus 112. And this is going to be now 0 on this side. We are asked to use the quadratic formula to find their ages. So first of all, that's the first part. We've done that one. We've formulated. Now, in order to solve the quadratic formula, we need to know what A is, what B is, and what C is. So remember, A is going to be the coefficient of x squared. There is nothing there, it means there is 1. So A is equal to 1. B is positive 9, so just 9. C is negative 112. Okay, so now all we have to do is solve it. And I hope you know the quadratic formula, which says x equals to negative b, that's going to be negative 9, plus or minus square root of b squared is 9 squared. Take away 4 times a is 1, times c, which is negative 112. So, sorry guys, that's negative 112. Everything divided by 2 times a. But we know a is 1, so it's just 2 times 1. Let's simplify this. So that's going to give you x equals negative 9 plus or minus, okay, square root of b squared. So 9 squared is 81. negative 4 times 1 times negative 112. If you multiply this, what would you have? Well, you will have 448, but it's going to be plus because there's a minus there and minus here. So that's going to be plus 448 over 2. So let's go on and solve this. So minus 9 plus or minus 81 plus 448. If you add these together, what you get? Well, 1 plus 8 is 9. 8 plus 4 is 12. So 2 here. Carry over the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. Everything divided by 2. Right, so what do we have now then? X equals to negative 9 plus or minus square root of 529. You can start with the square root of 400 because that, that is going to be 20. 20 times 20 is 400. So it's got to be something near there, right? So if you work it out or if you check your tables, you will find out the square root of 529 is 23. So I'm going to put plus or minus 23 over 2. So if we take the plus, then we have x equals negative 9 plus 23, which is going to be 14. So 14 over 2, that's going to be 7. The other value, x equals to negative 9, negative 23, that's negative 32, divide by 2, that's going to give you negative 16. Now guys, remember this is a real life situation that doesn't involve negative number. Someone's age cannot be a negative number. Perhaps if we're doing something with temperature, that could be allowed, but because it's someone's age, then you have to conclude that x is equal to 7. So now you can say that John is 7 years old and his sister Rachel is 7 plus 3, so Rachel is 10 years old. Right, so that part is completed. Now let's do part B, which is right here. We are told the sum of the squares, the sum of the squares of 2 consecutive positive numbers, 61. Find the numbers. Consecutive, what does that mean? And these numbers have to be positive, by the way. Consecutive numbers are numbers that are next to each other. So, for example, 3, 4, they are consecutive numbers, they are next to each other. 6, 7, they are consecutive numbers. What happens? One number is one more than the other all the time. They can be negative, but we're not really interested in negative. But negative 1 and negative 2, they are consecutive number because they are next to each other. So that's what it means. The difference between those numbers is always 1. If we say our first number is n, the second number is going to be n plus 1. We are asked to square this number and then add them, the sum of the squares of these two numbers. So if you square this one, you get n squared. For this one, you get n plus 1 squared. So let's go ahead and just deal with this one first. What does that mean? Guys, it's not n squared plus 1 squared. No, you need to expand double brackets, double brackets, that's the same as n plus 1, n plus 1. If you expand this, you're going to get n squared, n times n times 1, so plus 1n, so plus n, and 1 times n plus n, 1 times 1 plus 1. This will give you n squared plus 2n plus 1. Now we are told the sum. So if we add these two, what do we get? We get a 61. So let's add them up. N squared plus n squared. That's going to give you 2n squared. And then we just have plus 2n plus 1, and they are going to be equal to 61. In order to find the numbers, we need to solve this. We can see the n squared. What does that remind you of? Quadratic equations. So let's make one side equal to 0 by doing -1 here, -61 on this side. Right, so now we have 2n squared plus 2n plus 1 minus 61. That's going to give you -60 equals to 61. Take away 61 is 0. Right, everything here is divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2 to make my life easy. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I just have n squared. Same here, I'm just going to have n. And here I have 30. 0 divided by 2 is still a 0. Now then, I can now solve this easily. There is a number here is 1. Find two numbers that multiply to make 30 and subtract or add to get +1. So I know two numbers that make 30 if you multiply, and the difference between them is 1, is 6 and 5. We have to decide which one is positive, which one is negative, because I have a negative right here. So I have a +1 here, which means the 6 is going to be the plus, the 5 is the negative. So now I can factorize. So I have n plus 6 and then n minus 5 in the other equal to 0, guys. You solve this, you'll have n equals -6 and then n equals to 5. Right, let's go back to our question. What does it say? The sum of the squares of two consecutive positive numbers. So we don't want to deal with the negative numbers, we want to deal with the 5. So this is the one that we want. So our first number is equal to 5, and our second number is going to be 5 plus 1, which is 6. Right, let's check this. Okay, let's check them out. What does it say? If you add their squares, you should have 61. So I'm going to add the squares. If I square 5, I get 25. If I square 6, I get 36. If I add this, I get a 61. And I'm a happy bunny. Guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like or subscribe. Bye for now.